God, you know you're fat when you get out of breath dancing in your chair. Hello and welcome to.
That is, I do believe that is now part of the medical criteria.
Yeah.
The doctor will look at you, and it's right up there with having you take your shirt off. They slap you and check to see how long your belly jiggles.
That's right. 30 seconds, fatty. Maybe hit a treadmill.
No, like the Simpsons reference where it's
Oh.
Hibbert slaps Homer and it just starts going. He goes, "Woohoo! Look at that blubber fly!" And Hibbert just looks at his secretary and goes, "Cancel my 3:00."
And with that introduction out of the way, hello and welcome to Damn You Hollywood. Wait, that's not how this goes. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to a Radulich and Broadcasting premiere podcast, Damn You Hollywood. And Holy Spirit, activate. Holy Spirit, activate. Holy Spirit, activate. Robert Winfree. Yay!
That was odd.
So on TikTok, one of the trending sounds is the Holy Spirit activate thing from I think one of the Wilson Phillips sisters. And there's a particular one that's a little unnerving, but I was talking with my wife about it before this podcast, and so I have that now in my head. So everything right now is Holy Spirit activate.
Alrighty then.
All right. This is your show. Don't let me take over.
Oh, now you don't want me to let you take over. Now you decide, no, this is your show. I will have nothing to do with this is yours. You, sir, are the captain of note for the Titanic.
You are technically the host. I'm the co-host. I'm the Ed McMahon to your Johnny Carson. You know you're on camera, right?
Yeah, I just got something really stuck back there, and it's kind of bothering me.
Okay.
I will deal with it at some point in the future.
Glad we're streaming this live to the whole world.
Ain't it the best? Well, hello, everyone. If you're wondering why we're just kind of vamping, we are half expecting Ronnie Adams to join us. And half... Oh, God, Edgar Wright.
And half Holy Spirit activate. Holy Spirit activate. Holy Spirit.
Please don't dance. Only I may dance. It's my show. Okay, we are tonight discussing the latest Edgar Wright film, Last Night in Soho.
Yes, sir.
Mark, I have to ask. Most of these things I remember now. Mm-hmm. Like before, it was just you'd throw the schedule at me and we'd go, okay, and then we'd have something to vamp about on occasion.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we have a slightly more collaborative because of the state of cinema, which we will get to. Hang on, which we will discuss in greater detail Friday, because that's a more appropriate discussion there. We now discuss these things a lot more beforehand. Like, okay, X, Y, Z. Here's my thought process, and some of it's self-evident, some of it's not so much.
Right.
So I have to ask, why this movie?
A couple of reasons. One, it is categorized as a psychological horror film, and
it is. I might even argue that's improperly categorized, but fair enough.
So I am trying to push myself. I am trying to expand my horizons. I know the majority of the people that I podcast with enjoy the horror genre. And I just want to have stuff to talk about with people who enjoy talking about things that they like to talk about. So I was like, okay, well, then if that means that I have to be the one that's uncomfortable, God knows I've asked a lot of everybody else, to watch things they're not exactly thrilled about, but they do so because of whatever the reasons are. So like I feel like in return I should do the same thing. And so when I saw that this was coming out, and then which goes to the second reason. The director, I mean, we like Edgar Wright. We like Shaun of the Dead. Sean Comer and I, it'll be out later this year as a re-air, did the Cornetto trilogy about the time that we ended Long Road to Ruin for a while.
Yeah, you guys just about went on hiatus not too long after that.
Yeah. So, I mean, we tend to like Edgar Wright. He tends to do a lot of out-of-the-box things. He's one of those directors that kind of does his, it was a major conversation we had with yet another re-air at a later date, Ant-Man, which was... he really tried to put his own spin on it, and he ran up against the boundaries that are Marvel Studios.
It's a shame he didn't come. It's a shame he didn't come along now. I'm going to go out on a minor limb and say his take on the Eternals would have been much better than what we're going to get.
Well, more on that a week from tomorrow. In any case, so the short answer being, it's yet another horror film. It's a horror film I felt like I could handle.
Oh yeah, this is very. As I was watching this, mostly bored out of my mind. This struck me as something very much up your alley in a lot of respects.
Yeah, it very much was. I'll talk about that when we get to the craft review. And then I like the director. I thought you liked the director.
I'm mostly positive on Edgar Wright. I'm not a fanboy of his. I can see the good and the bad in some of his stuff. Some of his stuff is legitimately brilliant. I don't think I can say a bad word about Hot Fuzz or Shaun of the Dead if I tried.
Right.
On the other hand, there's Baby Driver.
I actually haven't seen that. And then the third by a distant margin reason was it was either this or nothing, because the other option was Antlers, and I wasn't reviewing that.
So, yeah, I know you were never going to review Antlers. I'm kind of looking. I don't know if I'm going to see it in theaters, but I'm definitely looking forward to watching it at my earliest convenience. Don't get me
wrong. Had you been like Guillermo del Toro, yet another director, I want to see this, you should review it, I would have made myself go see it. But given a choice between Last Night in Soho and Antlers, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go Last Night in Soho 10 out of 10 times.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, so with that out of the way, I suppose we should get into the plot synopsis of this thing.
Let's do it.
So, a young Cruella de Vil.
We were talking before this, and I said I had to write the page for this, and so I always have to set up links to other stuff. And I'm like, okay, so this is Edgar Wright. He also did Scott Pilgrim, did that. Anya Taylor-Joy is in this. We did Glass. She's in that, and she's also in New Mutants. So those are good for this. And I almost went, I need a third film here.
Cruella.
I almost went Cruella. And I'm like, no.
Why not?
The loose association being they both have to do with fashion.
They both feature female protagonists, and we'll use air quotes around protagonist. They're both about fashion. They're both set in London, and they're both drenched in the crappy music that came out of the British 60s scene.
God, you're breaking my heart.
Yes, I am. That is a deliberate jab. But please tell me, this movie felt a little bit like somewhere along the line Disney passed over Wright for Cruella, and he went, well, screw you. I've seen the script. I'll do it better. Okay.
I will answer that by saying the following. I don't think it's. I think in terms of both of them using the 60s music, that's fair to bring up. I don't think it's fair to criticize this movie, as it wasn't like Cruella, where it was wholly dependent on those in order to engender good feelings in the audience. The music of this movie was as much a character in it as anybody else in the movie.
Yeah. Look, again, I think he did it better.
Yes, he absolutely did it better.
But 100%. let's not pretend that there's not like the comparisons are there for a reason.
Fair enough. All right. So yes, a young Cruella de Vil, pre-trauma.
Depending on who you talk to. Okay, so jokes aside, we are introduced to our protagonist as such. I have very negative feelings about, but we'll get into that.
Every time you say that, I just want to start screaming out, I'm the protagonist.
Go ahead, do it.
I'm the protagonist in this movie.
There you go.
The story.
Thank you, John David Washington. Eloise Turner, she tends to go by Ellie. She's an aspiring fashion designer who lives out in the countryside in England and is schizophrenic, I suppose.
I think she's clairvoyant.
She's a bit of a medium. She can kind of see spirits, especially in reflective surfaces. She sees the ghost of her mother on occasion.
What's the Holy Spirit activating?
Please don't. She is accepted to the London College of Fashion. She heads out to begin chasing her dream. She's romanticized London. That's a bad idea. Don't romanticize not just London. Not me shooting at London here. Don't romanticize any large city. Don't do it. It will only lead to bad things. So she goes there. She becomes roommates with a not nice person. Other adjectives I could use, I'm going with those. She doesn't really fit into dorm life, what with the bullying and the competitiveness and the constant partying. So she rents out another room in Soho. And when she gets to her room, she starts having visions of the 1960s, and she's following around a specific woman played by Anya Taylor-Joy named Sandy. And what follows is she becomes a bit more obsessed with trying to be like her and following this young woman coming to London to be the next hit singer. And this goes badly, as it does for oh so many people in reality, because dreams don't really come true. That's why it's so special on the rare occasions they do.
Fair enough.
She uses some of her visions as inspiration for her fashion classes. She starts breaking down because she starts seeing these manifestations, these spirits more and more, and she starts freaking out. This tale of Sandy goes something like she ran into the doctor, in this case Matt Smith, who allegedly was going to become her manager as she tried to become the next big singing sensation. Well, again, this tends to go badly. She winds up being just kind of a backup dancer and then eventually a whore, and I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean, he literally pimps her out, and her life goes downhill. And one of the culminating visions that Eloise has is she believes she sees Sandy murdered. She also thinks she knows who Matt Smith, his character's name is Jack. She believes she knows who he is in the real world, in the contemporary world. As an old guy who hangs out at a bar she works at. She tries to confront him. This goes badly. He gets hit by a car, purely an accident. She decides she can't take it anymore. She's harassed by visions of faceless men chasing her around. She's got visions of this poor woman who had her dreams ruined and her life ended prematurely, and no one will listen to her. And why, oh, why won't you listen to the hysterical woman who claims that she has a vision of a murder from 1960? I wonder. She goes to leave, but in the course she goes to the police at one point, and they do start poking around just a little bit. It turns out her landlady is actually Sandy, who was not murdered by Matt Smith's character. She killed him in self-defense. And then, like you do, I suppose, turned into a serial killer.
Yeah, the old once you kill somebody, you just can't stop.
Well, look, she got it.
You can never have just one.
She got a taste for it.
Sure. And blood is tasty, as we all know. Filled with iron.
It really is. And she was murdering some of the people who had previously solicited her and stuffing them under the floors and in the walls of this building that she owns. And now she tries to kill Ellie because she knows her secret. She winds up stabbing Ellie's boyfriend. There's a big fight. I hate this ending so much. I've like already kind of blocked part of it from my mind. But there's a big fight. Sandy eventually realizes bits of the error of her ways, but insists that every one of her murder victims deserved it. To which our point of view character goes, I know.
I mean...
No. No.
Okay, I'm going to let you finish. We can talk.
Bad writing. Bad writing. Go sit in the corner.
I mean, it didn't help that she was wearing a shirt that says #MeToo.
Just... Well, in the course of this...
I can see your aneurysm.
In the course of this final confrontation, a fire starts. Ellie and her boyfriend are saved. Sandy sits at the top, sits on her old bed at the top of this building and immolates. We then flash forward a little bit. We flash forward a little bit, and now Ellie is presenting her work as part of the annual fashion, as part of the fashion show for her class. It's well received. Everyone loves her because, oh, isn't she just so brave? And she gets another bit of a vision of both her mother and then of Sandy, and goes off to resume that habit of murdering men. I suppose I don't. Look. There's something of a decent movie in here somewhere. There might be. The writing for this is so bad. Like it's so bad. To the extent to which this movie succeeds is based largely on the visual stylings of Edgar Wright. The story is crap. The performances aren't anything at all memorable. I mean, some of them border on the comical and not the intentionally comical. I don't know who would be scared by some of the stuff that they come up with here. Most of the scary sequences don't work all that well in terms of trying to scare you. You more buy that the character that Ellie is a little bit freaked out by this than you are affected by it. It's very detached. This is not a movie that you invest in, I think, as a general rule. Yeah, this was.
I don't know. It depends on who you are in the audience. You may not have connected with you, but I can see this resonating with a lot of women. Not that any women saw this. We'll more
I know.
on that later. but for those women who might want to watch this at home on Netflix in the future, when it gets there in about 20 minutes.
So look, I don't have a whole lot positive to say about this. So, and I tend to think you might, not just because I believe that's one of the things you'd put out there in the kind of the ether beforehand was you had some positive things to say. So I will let you have the floor, and then I will potentially rail against other elements of this after you do so.
I hear you. I see you, Robert Winfree. No, I hear what you're saying, and I guess I hadn't thought that much about the story writing, as it were. The things that I were focusing on were very visual and aesthetic, and I think for me that's what drew me in. So let me start there. I enjoyed the story that they were telling. I like this idea of you have a girl who has some degree of the psychological going on, clairvoyance, whatever her situation is.
She sees dead people.
Yeah. And because of that, she's been sheltered and protected, and now she's going to London, a place where people get murdered on a fairly regular basis.
One of the best lines in this movie actually comes from the old Sandy when there was a girl who died in my room. It's London, sweetie. Someone's died in every room and in every street corner in this entire godforsaken city. You're gonna have to be a little more specific.
This is the city that gave us Jack the Ripper, a man known for killing whores in the street. So, among others. So anyway, so I like the idea of playing as a central premise. What if a girl who sees dead people goes to the big city and sees dead people? How would that work out for her? Okay, interesting. As a sort of Me Too, fable, where a modern gal is seeing the past through the eyes of a girl who was manipulated and put out on the street and abused and traumatized and eventually driven to murder.
So much murder.
Oh, so much murder. I think as an elevator pitch, I'm with you so far. I can see this being a passion project for Edgar Wright, who did, in fact, not only direct it, but also was part of the screenplay writing, and this was his actual story that he wrote. So, his paw prints are all over this thing, and I can absolutely see this as a passion project of his. I enjoyed the performances. First up is Anya Taylor-Joy. She's fantastic in this, simply ravishing, just wonderful to watch, lights up the screen. Thomasin McKenzie as sort of a mousy country girl, overwhelmed by the experience. I think she does a fair job at that. The woman is what she is, and I think she was doing what she was asked for in that role. Your mileage on how well you tolerate her performance and her interactions with other actors in the movie may vary, but I was okay with it. My only thought here is I could see where her voice would grate on people's nerves.
It's, for me, this is going to sound really odd. It was less her voice and more her accent.
Okay.
And that's weird for me to say. I don't usually have a problem with accents, but something about her is just kind of
Yeah,
made me do this.
my wife tends to fetishize anything British. And so, a British accent or an Australian accent, and she's, she's a bucket of butter. But that's not really me. I think Cockney is kind of funny, but I
You
don't
would.
but I don't get crazy over the British accent. And here, for some odd reason, like between the British accents, the aesthetic of London,
I'm a little surprised you're not more of the Scouse accent than the Cockney accent, but
and the music, like I was very much drawn into this movie, and I think that's why I came away with a positive feeling about it. Yeah, the final act kind of goes off the deep end, but I have seen so much worse, so much more off the deep end, and like this is less off the deep end than Candyman, and so I think with that experience being so soon, so close to this, like, oh, it's not that bad. It isn't completely disconnected from the movie the way Candyman was.
No, I think you're correct there. It's not tonally disconnected.
Right.
But boy, does it rely on the audience to make a very similar stupid leap of moral logic.
All right, so here's where I'm going to agree with you. There's a problem with the story structure. I don't believe the movie the movie sets up rules for her superpower and what it is she's able to do with it, and then breaks them when it was convenient. If she is seeing the events as they played out, she's in a sense time traveling. And then suddenly it isn't time travel anymore. It's a misperception of what all occurred. I'm not entirely sure how we got to that point. And what I mean by that is you're led to believe that what she's seeing in the movie is what really happened to Anya Taylor-Joy's character. And then suddenly it's not when it was convenient. Well, and then it just kind of turned into a zombie ghost story. And then at the end, they set everything on fire and burned it down. And I'm like, all right. It's so funny. I was so forgiving of this movie, as stupid as the ending was, because it's only at the very end did it get that stupid. I was enjoying it up to that point. Even the silly twist with the cop, she thinks the old man.
That was so horrible. Like, that didn't bother me, but I'm just gonna say it. That was horribly telegraphed.
She thinks the skeevy old man is Jack, and as it turns out, it's actually a vice detective, which a lost opportunity, I think, because they don't do anything with that character. He's in one scene where he's telling the Anya Taylor-Joy well into her life as a whore, and he's like, "You can do better than this. You can be better than this." And then you never see him again, and then you're supposed to somehow feel something when he gets hit by a car and dies, and it's like, but why? He did nothing in this movie. He's in one scene, and you're led to believe he's a John. Like, it was a very weird. I don't know why Edgar Wright thought it was necessary to do that twist, but he didn't build it up enough or do enough with it for it to have mattered, and it just seemed like a twist for the sake of adding a twist in there.
Yeah, and again, it was pretty horribly telegraphed if you pay attention to these things.
Mm-hmm. But sticking with some of the other good points of it, other than, like I said, breaking with the rules as was set up at the beginning of the movie, I just kind of let it go. I was like, I don't care enough at this point. It is what it is. I think there's such a tonal shift also between the first and second act and the third act, because the third act almost entirely becomes a bloody gore fest, and stabbing and everything else, and zombies, and faceless naked men coming out of the floorboards and everything. And it's very much, like I said, a metaphor for the Me Too movement, which I was fine with. I don't get hung up in that sort of thing. That's what if Edgar Wright wants to write a Me Too fable, let him write a Me Too fable. We can choose or not choose to go see it.
Yeah, I'm with you as far as that goes. I don't object to it existing in the sense that how dare this movie exist. No, if you want to do this, knock yourself out. But,
I know if Ronnie were here right now, he would be saying, get your politics out of my horror movie. But I mean, that you can only say that when the guy making the movie interjected politics where there didn't need to be any. This was clearly the intention of this movie.
It was the intention, and horror movies the vast majority of them have political undertones and pretty much always have. Like,
Sure.
The way
anyway, yeah, you don't get any real horror elements in the first act and a half of this thing. And then the second half of the second act, there's some allusions to it here or there, but it's more psychological thriller than it is horror movie. And then the third act just goes full gore, full bore into the slasher stabby horror genre to the point it got ridiculous. But I was having such a good time with the movie up until that point, I didn't care anymore. I was like, it was kind of like, well, at some point, Edgar Wright said, and in the end, we're going to stab everything and set it on fire and burn it down, and there's going to be blood everywhere. And it's like, okay, you took me on this ride. This is what you thought the conclusion was going to be. I'm willing to let you have your conclusion and not beat you up for it. It's just tonally, it's very jarring because there's not a lot of like easing you into it. It's just it just sort of happens. But that being said, I was enjoying the fashion of this. The fashion, much like we joked about with Cruella, plays a major role in this, and I enjoyed the costuming. Let me talk a little bit about some of the other side characters in this. So you have the bitchy competitive classmate.
What was her name? Jocasta,
yeah. And look, I have seen so much worse writing. Like, if you're gonna beat her up, beat up the writing on those characters, that's fine. That's on you.
I mean, some, but my issue with the writing of those characters is not so much that it's like uneven, in the sense that potentially is bad writing. It's more, did you put any effort into this? Or did you copy paste a section of the Mean Girls script? Like, that's what it feels like.
Okay, and that's fair. She very much felt like stock bully character. I think I felt she was believable, and so I was willing to let it
go. Those people exist. I'm not
right.
My issue is not unbelievability or that she's some uneven character. It's more, you're a red shirt, like not in a body count kind of way, but in a, you're gonna be here. You don't matter.
Yeah,
nothing you do matters.
Right.
They could have cut her from the script entirely and changed nothing.
I did like Edgar Wright's kind of signaling, at the beginning of it. There's a young black fella hanging out in front of the school, and he's eating an apple, believing possibly menacingly.
Right after our poor innocent heroine was slightly lascivious by a taxi driver.
Right. So she gets to the school, and yet another man, all their men and their penises, just assaulting this poor girl who she wants to make dresses.
Yeah, they're everywhere. You can't get away from them. It's like half the population is men.
Yeah, I don't understand how we got to be this way. Anyway, so he's out there being black and menacing and eating an apple, and it turns out he's going to be her boyfriend later on in the film. And it's so funny. If there's any character who I thought, if you're going to start screaming about underwriting or stock writing, whatever, it's him.
Yeah,
because he once again is just the picture of the denuded male.
What a limp noodle, right?
Yeah, a denuded male, limp noodle, however you want to describe it.
I mean, he's designing fashion, which is now. Let me be clear about the following statement. Hang on. Let me say
Versace and Gucci before you say another word.
Let me say it.
Okay.
Not traditionally understood as a masculine profession. Fair. Nothing wrong with it. If you've got an eye for it and you've got talent and passion.
By sheer volume, you are correct. There are more women fashion designers than there are men.
And again, if this is to anyone out there listening to this on the off chance, if you have a passion and a talent and a drive to do it, go forth. Don't let anyone tell you can't because you're a man. None of that changes the fact that it is not traditionally a masculine profession.
Right.
Again, not anything more than that. Hello, Ronnie.
Ronnie Adams having some sort of conniption here. Are you okay? Just keep going, Robert.
Okay. I think he's having audio issues.
Yeah, I guess.
So we've got, and then how do these two date? He kind of goes, maybe we could hang out and what he's not pushy, and not only not pushy, but like he's not even basically assertive.
Yeah,
which is more the problem, I think. You don't have
he is the
don't be a jerk.
ideal male in a Me Too fable. Not in any way he is perceived to be, by virtue of his race and presence in that particular scene, menacing, but in no way is he in any way assaultive or violent or there's a word I'm looking for here, but like
you're talking about Matt Smith.
No, we're talking about the black kid that that poor bastard.
It's the accent.
There's a lot more than the accent.
A lot, yeah, but
just like inoffensive, just completely, he's just like, I'm just here to be an accoutrement to your femininity.
And as soon as you desire some sort of physical action, I will be very accommodating. And when you freak out as we're making out, I will run barefoot across broken glass, not complain about that.
And assume it's my fault.
Which was never resolved.
And then the next time I see you, after pulling a John McClane, go, did I do something wrong?
That's just how guys are.
Men.
Yeah, that's where I'm just going to leave it.
That's
how they were portrayed in the movies.
I feel like this character was not written by a man. Like that's
absolutely.
That's all I've got there.
Well, the other writer on the screenplay is Krysty Wilson-Cairns, and let's just go ahead and assume she created his character.
I almost wonder if Edgar Wright wrote this script without him, and it was just a much more tight, more like kind of claustrophobic story about Ellie going nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And the contributions that we got from her were, well, could we have a love interest? I don't think the story needs a love interest. Well, he's not really going to be a love interest. He's just going to be there. Yeah, sure.
Hey, Robert, another film that I could have linked to this when I wrote the page for it, 1917. Want to know why? She has a written by credit for along with Sam Mendes for 1917. Doesn't have a whole lot of other credits though. She's got a writing credit for which she was nominated and won. She was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay for 1917. She was nominated for the Writers Guild of America Award for Best Original Screenplay, and she won a BAFTA Award for Outstanding British Film. This is only her second other credit though. For film.
Seems like her and Sam Mendes jive a lot more than her and Edgar Wright did.
Yeah, she's also got a television credit for season 3 of Penny Dreadful and a bunch of short films. So anyway, yeah, I can definitely be Edgar Wright just sort of giving her the green light, like, here, you write a characterization for this boyfriend character, and it's like, okay, well, this is a woman story, and we're talking about the evil that men do. And so, yeah, I can absolutely write, as you call them, a limp noodle. Let's get Ronnie into the discussion here. Ronnie, I don't know where you land, probably with Robert, given some of the comments you made to me privately. But there's a lot of things. There was a lot of praise that I sang here. I made
one comment.
Just to kind of catch you up real quick, like in 50 words or less, and then I'll give you your say. Okay. I liked like 2/3 of this movie. It gets a little silly in the third act, and not as silly as Candyman, but definitely kind of silly. But between the look of the fashion, the music, the acting, and the story that they were getting at, and the themes of it, I was having a good time with this, and I could forgive the silliness at the end. What say you?
I agree with you on that. When I first sat down, I did no research going into this movie, so I had no idea what I was really in for. I thought it was going to be another like The Lake House or whatever that was with Keanu Reeves and whoever else was in that. I can't remember. It's been a long time since I've seen that.
If you're speaking about The Lake House, it was Sandra Bullock.
Yeah, there we go. I couldn't remember if she was actually in it or if I was just dreaming that.
That was their first on-screen pairing since Speed. Was one of was sold.
Yeah. And it was just I thought it was going to be like, she dreams her way into the 60s and falls in love or whatever. I had no idea that I was in for like a horror movie. Well, kind of a horror movie. So that made me happy because I went to see it on Halloween Day. So I didn't know what I was getting myself into. But it was an interesting plot. It was an interesting way to take on this, and it was cool to see that they recognized that she had power, that this weird power, or whatever. Her grandma said she had it and everything. I was like, okay, so they recognize it. So that means they're not going to have to go back and do a lame explanation of why she has this, or why she's,
why
experiencing this.
Yeah, why am I having these visions? We could just skip that part. She knows why she's having them.
So, I was down with it, and then it got to the final act where all these men that were taking advantage of her, treating her like a prostitute because she was being prostituted. You almost felt sorry for them.
Mm-hmm.
You
felt sorry for the Johns.
Yeah, for being lecherous and knowing they knew what they were getting into, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, help us, and I'm like, wait, what? And it was odd. It was really out of.
I'm gonna completely disagree with you in that particular respect. I was okay with them being sympathetic characters at that point, mostly because in the following way. Okay,
hang on. Does anyone else recognize the cognitive dissonance of three middle-aged men discussing?
Dude, you and I talked about. See our discussion on Jessica Jones. Like, we've done this already. We've accepted the reality of this being weird.
I just needed to point it out. Like, I'm not ending the podcast, but like, how dare three men with penises discuss such a vagina story? Like, no, I'm like, let's have this discussion. It's fine. Someone's going to make the comment, so let me just jump in front of that train for them and be like, we know.
Here's my take on that.
Okay, go ahead.
Jump on the show with us then. Or
if you're listening, we are live. Feel free to participate in the comments section wherever you happen to be.
Yeah.
Mark, if you're watching live on Twitch, give us a follow. Get notified when we go live. Mark will put your comments up on screen. We will interact with you.
Absolutely. Right. We've done it before.
All right. So men who sleep with prostitutes are angels. Go.
I didn't say angels. Look, when Anya Taylor-Joy kills Matt Smith in self-defense because he's a psycho trying to stab her in the neck.
Right.
Good.
Right.
He deserved that. You try to kill someone, you wind up dying. You've kind of got that coming.
Hoisted by your own petard.
100%. I'm less sympathetic to the point that all men who solicit prostitutes should be violently gutted.
I didn't say that. But I also know that where they were and what they were doing, they had to know that some of these girls, they didn't have a choice.
Let me ask you guys a question. It's sort of a nuanced argument that I'm going to make, but if we're going to go down this road, let's go ahead and have this discussion, because I think Robert's point is valid. The simple act of engaging in prostitution in and of itself, I don't think is morals and religion and sin aside. As a simple act of meeting a basic human need through virtue of commerce, I don't think is particularly wrong. I don't want to get into the biblical implications of it or any of that. That's a whole other discussion.
I'm not.
Okay.
Okay.
No,
go ahead, sorry.
But there's a point that I'm bringing. I'm going with this. So if the argument is, hey, she at some point willfully engaged in being a prostitute, and they willfully engaged in soliciting a prostitute, it was an agreed upon bargain of mutually consenting adults, and then she turns around and kills them because she feels abused and traumatized by the situation. Okay, I kind of see the point you're making, but I think the implication that Edgar Wright is going with is that while she may have physically participated, it was mentally against her will, and therefore this is a revenge story. These men took advantage of this woman who maybe could not summon the strength to pull herself out of that situation. And every interaction with a guy like that engaging in prostitution was an affront and an attack on her person, and finally she just erupts in violence. That's clearly what Edgar Wright's going for here. If it's not patently obvious to the audience,
I'm not saying.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
One of you go ahead, Ronnie. Go.
I'm not going to say that. I'm not saying. I'm not taking up for her or saying, "Yay, murder was the way to do this." But I'm also saying, that at some point, you have to. I mean, like I have to admit, I'm the only one that I can say this about. That I have to do this because it's where I am on this. These guys knew they weren't going to somebody on the street. They weren't going to almost a willing participant. They were going to basically a prostitution mill where they found new girls every week and they chose from or whatever. It's just like everybody. They know that these girls were high, drunk. There because they had to be, because they were being forced to be. And that's where I'm like, I don't want to feel sorry for these guys for what they were involved in.
Okay.
I also don't think
you feel made to because they were murdered.
Right.
Okay.
And it's I don't want anybody to be murdered. Matt Smith was kind of like
I guess of the three of us, I was with the movie's point of view is they all had it coming, and I agreed with the movie right or wrong.
Yeah, right. And they kind of do. Like I said, I'm not cheering on murder or anything, but as from a movie standpoint, they knew what they were getting into, so they kind of had it coming.
All right, Robert, go ahead.
Yeah, here's my problem with that, and this is a real. You get into the most ridiculous circular logic with what you can defend in this case.
Okay.
So if the young black man who was Ellie's boyfriend had a pair and killed the old woman instead of being stabbed repeatedly and then miraculously surviving, losing half of the blood in his body, is that justified because she was a serial killer?
No.
And then, okay, can we all agree that murder is worse than soliciting prostitution? Multiple murders, significantly worse than even a singular murder. Multiple premeditated murders. Like, she lured these poor dumb bastards into her place and then violently murdered them. Denied any sort of closure for their families by keeping the bodies hidden. Violated so many building codes structures as well with what she had to do to
God forbid.
To make them. Like, the point here, this is not a good person.
Well, that you didn't. I mean, I didn't say whether she deserved what she got or not. She absolutely did. She absolutely did. But did I think she deserved to do it her own way? Absolutely not.
Would you
the guy should have had a pair?
Happier if all the guys soliciting prostitutes had just had a piano fall on them?
Oh, me?
No, I was talking to Ronnie.
Okay.
Ronnie's contention is he kind of feels bad for the John she murdered.
I don't want to feel bad for either one of them. Okay. I feel bad for her for being forced into that situation. But I also don't want to be. I don't want. Obviously, anybody in a situation like that, you're going to feel some sort of something. Whatever I'm looking. I'm sorry. Like I said, I just woke up. Ronnie was sleepy bear tonight.
This movie's fine.
This movie's great. I'm going back to bed. You're going to feel sorry, for somebody in that situation. Sympathy. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. You're going to feel sympathy for somebody in that situation, of course. And she is a sympathetic character in that light.
Sure.
As far as luring guys into their murder, no, she's guilty of that. But also on the other side, this is not a black and white for me. I don't want to feel bad for those guys, but do I feel?
Before you came on the show tonight, I was using the word fable, and when I think of fables, modern fables, let's talk about Quentin Tarantino and the what's the World War II one where he kills all the Nazis.
Inglourious Bastards.
Inglourious Bastards. Yeah, I almost said Hateful Eight. I'm like, I know that's not right.
That's not right.
Inglourious Bastards is this fable where he gets to live out the fantasy of killing Hitler, of killing Nazis in cold blood. And you want to get into sort of a moral debate over whether or not the rank and file had it coming, or were they slaughtered in cold blood and should not have been, and should have been treated more humanely because they were just the rank and file. They were not the architects of the of the Holocaust. And again, you're with Quentin Tarantino and his point of view. You're with the movie because isn't it fun to live out this fantasy of killing what we can mostly all agree on was an evil regime?
Yeah.
And I think that follows for Last Night in Soho, where the point of view of the movie is, manipulating women into prostitution is probably bad, and those who engage in said thing have it coming when these women turn on them.
Yeah.
So I'm not totally understanding
what I'm getting at is
how we got into this swamp.
I feel sympathy for her,
okay.
And on a amoral justice standpoint, I cheered her on.
Okay,
but
you're supposed to.
She flipped the script, right? And
right.
she wanted to kill our girl,
right?
Because she went to the cops. So
right.
now she is just trying to cover up something honestly illegal she did. So now she's no better than the Johns and everybody before her because she's trying to kill innocent people.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say she was always worse because murder is worse than solicitation.
It's all bad. Now that's where I'm going to say like nothing is worse than the other, I guess you could say. Because it's all considered bad. But
I'm gonna go out again. This might be a little bit of a limb I'm out on, but a serial killer is morally worse than someone soliciting a prostitute.
Well, I can't say that it is.
What does this in any way have to do with your enjoyment or non-enjoyment of the film in terms of how well made this film was or was
because
not?
I saw it coming. At the third act when it started,
yeah.
I saw it coming. I was like, "Oh man, now they're going to be like, oh, help us!" And he literally said, "Help us!" And I was like, "Well, I called that."
Okay,
and
so with the impression I'm getting from you is you thought the third act was a bit hackneyed.
A little bit, yeah, absolutely. Okay. And I would have rather seen her boyfriend just grab a fire poker and knock the old bird out. And then turn her into the cops.
That's not the theme of this movie. The theme of this movie is that I am woman, hear me roar.
Redemption.
And all men have penises and are terrible.
And I was going to go for the redemption gig. She redeemed herself by sitting in the fire.
I'm not going with that as redemption.
Yeah, I think she was like 1,000,000 years old.
You may not go with that as redemption, but that's what
I can either die in a fire and not go to prison, or I can go to prison, which is the worst hell.
900 years old.
Yeah,
I mean, if you wanted to go for a redemption angle here, she needed to give Ellie like the cure for the poison she gave her. Like there needed to be something other than don't stay here and die with me. You can't save me. Go live your life. Like, no.
Can I ask like an obvious question to you, Ronnie? Did you like the movie? Not like the movie? Is your enjoyment of the movie hindered by the fact that you saw the third act coming?
No. I was a little disappointed more than I was like upset at it.
Okay.
I enjoyed up to then, even at the point, there was still enjoyment in it, just saying, but I knew, at that point, I knew Elliot was going to get out of the building. I didn't know if her boyfriend was going to make her or not, but 99.9% sure he was. Okay. But
look, you want to make this movie better, everyone dies in the end. Let's go full Shakespeare here.
Just all everyone dies in the fire.
Mm-hmm.
No, I can't. I know.
What didn't you like? What didn't you like about the movie, Ronnie?
Just that point.
Or what
Just
did you
that
think
point.
was poorly done about the movie?
Well, I mean, when everything was going, and as soon as I knew what was going to happen, I knew it was kind of a in Mark Radulich terms, I'm Woman Henry War movie. But the only point that did just the poorly written third act.
Mm-hmm.
I say poorly written, but I guess you can call it that. I just didn't enjoy that as much as I did the rest of the movie. As far as it goes, the rest of the movie was actually pretty good.
It's funny. I don't know who. I don't know who this was aimed towards. Like, clearly it's aimed at people who are like, Edgar Wright fans and horror fans. But it's weird because like it's a very feminist movie. It's a very feminist movie in the pro woman movie in the sense of, hey, just because a man takes your power from you doesn't mean you can't take it back. I don't really want to get into the moral implications of murder. Let's just go with she took her power back.
Right. Yeah.
But then there's this twist on it where it's just like, well, I did these things but I don't want to be caught doing it because I know at the end of the day it's still illegal. So I'm going
it isn't the consequences of my own actions.
So I'm going to attack our real hero of this picture. So I think
who is just as cute as a button. I think she's adorable. I really do.
I think going back to Robert's point before you came onto the podcast was the biggest problem I think this movie has is its structure. It's really uneven and muddled. And as I say out loud, like, we've spent the last 20 minutes now debating, debating whether or not the Anya Taylor-Joy character,
whether or not look, let's simplify this.
Is a hero or not.
Is it a good idea to ask your audience to sympathize with, empathize with, and root for a serial killer and present them as a good person? This isn't a complicated question. The answer is no.
Mm-hmm. I almost think like I think Edgar Wright kind of had this vision of his head of if you remember the movie with Woody Harrelson and Juliette Lewis, Natural Born Killers, there's a scene with Rodney Dangerfield. It's a really, really gross, lecherous scene where he's molesting her in his underpants. And, it's Rodney Dangerfield, so it's somewhat funny because he kind of makes like this face. But it's also gross and horrifying, and you feel bad for Juliette Lewis, obviously. So when he kills her when she kills him later on, we're like, yay, Juliette Lewis for killing the incestuous rapist. Okay, cool. But I think Edgar Wright like sees a scene like that and goes, how can we take Rodney Dangerfield molesting Juliette Lewis and turn it into a zombie horror scene?
Case in point, the movie After House of Thousand Corpses, it's named Devil's Rejects. At the end of that, I watched Devil's Rejects because I'm an idiot.
I don't mean this as a negative. I sincerely hope you had a shower afterwards.
I did, absolutely. It was gross.
With his clothes on.
It's one of those
curled
movies
up in the corner crying.
It's designed to make you feel gross.
Yeah. Except for that end scene where they're all beat up and they're in the convertible.
They charge
the cops to Freebird.
To Freebird.
And I'm like, this is awesome. Are they going to make it? No, they're awful. Why am I cheering them on? And that's when I ended up in the shower crying, like, with fully clothed.
I actually do really appreciate that scene from that movie because
it's an amazing scene.
It's designed to make you ask the question. It's presenting these people that we know are the worst human beings and making you go, well, maybe you should root for them. And you do a little bit almost out of Stockholm Syndrome. Like I've followed these people through 2 movies at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I am compelled and I must root for them. These are the same idiots who get tricked into rooting for Dexter. Dexter's not a good person, never was.
Dexter uses his powers for good.
And for more on Dexter, check out Robert's Everyone Loves a Bad Guy this Sunday when Dexter New Blood airs on Showtime.
I almost signed up for Showtime just for that.
I mean, what's another good example? Vic Mackey's not a good guy.
Right.
You root like he is interesting, and so you as a viewer are interested. But those shows at least never put you in the position where you morally agree with what these terrible human beings are doing, and it's a huge mistake that this movie makes.
Mhm.
This woman murdered however many men, and we're supposed to cheer for this.
Walter White is not a good person.
No,
Okay,
he
so
is not.
So I think the movie's major problem is that it wants you to go along with the story that
it presents no redeemable characters
that
except for Eloise.
I was going to say, what's wrong with Eloise? Like Thomasin McKenzie,
Well,
you're led to believe. Hang on, you're led to believe that she is seeing, through second sight, the life of Anya Taylor-Joy. And you're led to believe that this woman was put upon and abused and traumatized, and then in the end was just defending herself when she killed Jack. And you're with her the whole way. Then if the movie just kind of stops there, or presents it as, but it was still murder and murder is bad. And then she's like, I didn't want to have to do this, but now you have to die because I'm an old woman and I'm not going to prison. I think it's a more straightforward narrative that you can then go along with. I think because they start to muddle the morality of it all in that third act. You end up like, well, how am I supposed to now feel about this other than I don't want the one character who did nothing wrong in this entire movie to get killed.
Right. Well, I don't know if I was popcorn drunk or just got it comfortable, but I did not see the fact that she killed him coming. That was a bit of a twist for me. And then everything clicked after that. I was like, oh, this is what's going to happen, and this is terrible.
But that's what I was getting at before. Like, I think when it's a story about Jack and Diane, with Jack and what is her actual name in this? Jack and Sandy.
Jack and Diane. Sorry.
Two American kids living in the heartland. Holy
Love
Spirit
this.
activate. Sorry. That was an hour ago. Anyway,
what did I tell you about dancing?
Do more.
When it's a story about Jack and Sandy, I think you have a much tighter, much more focused, much more interesting script. When it became zombie horror schlock at the end, I think Edgar Wright was doing what a lot of directors do, which is giving into his worst impulses. That is the last thing I'm going to say about this. 2/3 of this movie is solid and focused, and has a point of view and is everything I like about a movie. And then the last third is a very artsy director giving into his worst impulses and cocking up the entire film in retrospect. Ronnie, your last bit, and then Rob cleans us out and we're moving on. Go.
You said it's only a part of it is just where they're like, help us. And I'm like, oh, well, piss. Okay, let's go. Let's take it home. And then she, turns into Darth Vader, at the end of it. And
the sequel is going to be her with a bunch of prosthetic arms and a rebreather.
And go, no. But the nice little, her taking her mother's place at the end was just another one of those kind of like jabs at, yeah, that's there to stay, isn't it? So instead of seeing her mom, she sees a serial killer who gives her a little wink and a little, little boop on the snoot at the end. And then you're stuck with it. Up till then it was okay. Now I feel like that I've been taken advantage of for my money.
You should lure theater owners and screenwriters into your home and then kill them with a knife and bury them in the walls.
One podcast where we're not planning a murder.
Don't give me away like that, man.
Robert, your final thoughts, and then hey, Ronnie and I'm going to leave you out of this discussion. Ronnie and I have to quick talk about the music.
All right, fair enough. This. It's not that there's nothing good about this movie. The acting is all mostly passable. Nothing here is great, but it's all passable.
Right.
The costume design, I actually like the way that they designed a lot of Ellie's costuming. She's doing a poor modern take on vintage 60s and 70s stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that comes across very well in some of the choices that were made there. So good for that. The dialogue writing for this is very much uninspired. It gets the point across, but it's not. There's nothing of real note here.
It lacks flair.
Visually, a lot of things lack flair these days. Sadly, not SmackDown.
Oh my God.
Visually, there is actually some interesting stuff here visually. They do some great stuff with paying attention to certain reflections at different points in time. Some of the flashback sequences are really I mean, the entire introductory sequence to her flashback, that one in the Café du Paris, that's great. Like that whole sequence, great. Genuinely good stuff. Matt Smith as kind of a dickhead pimp. Okay, I'll buy it.
Sure. He gave off smarmy very well.
Very, very well.
Let me interrupt you just 1 second just to say this. Matt Smith is a wonderful actor. I really believe that. But his face makes me uncomfortable. Continue.
He has how does he manage to get doughy and skinny combined?
How does he look like a melted candle?
Yeah.
It's his brow. His brow is very prominent and very forward.
Yeah, he has very much almost like a Neanderthal brow, but like boyish, like boyish in the eyes and nose and mouth, and then
jowls, and then sunken in the cheeks.
Yeah, Frankenstein jaw.
Yeah, I'm hoping his agent sends him this now and be like, hey, 3 neckbeards had some issues with your face, famous actor.
Yeah, hang on. Look, if we're going to insult Matt Smith, let me do it properly, sir. You were a step down from David Tennant, and everyone knows it.
Oh wow, that ow.
Go on.
I don't even watch Doctor Who, and I know that. Would take him back in a heartbeat over the current Doctor, but that's a writing issue, not a Jodie Whittaker issue.
I don't watch Doctor Who.
Again, neither do.
With it. Yes, get on
with it. Yeah, has Mark never had to use that on you?
That's amazing. I'm sorry.
Oh, God, you're good, man. You're good.
So, Loki.
Yeah. That's our second one. The ending, I think, is a real problem for this. I don't think they knew how they wanted to end this tonally or morally or what stance they wanted to take. The twist, such as it exists, is very telegraphed to anyone who watches these kinds of movies. As soon as we see the alleged murder scene between Sandy and Matt Smith, you know the old guy's not the killer.
Right.
Yeah.
Because she cuts him on the very visibly while defending herself on the face, and the old guy doesn't have a scar.
Right.
So it's very obviously not him. It feels like they wanted to use red herrings, but didn't look up how to properly use red herrings. Like this is not a tight script.
I would say that Terence Stamp is old and wrinkly enough to not notice a scar or not.
I mean, God bless him. He turned in one of the best performances this movie has to offer.
He's good.
You guys mentioned you didn't really have a problem with Ellie. I had a minor problem with her. She just, as a character, she's a bit shrill for and they try to play that off because, oh God, you're hallucinating faceless men coming at you. So you can be shrill and mousy and flighty and try to stab someone in the face with scissors.
I'd be all 3 of those things.
And face no repercussions.
Yeah, I never thought about that.
Look, we as the audience know you're having worst case scenario, you're having a mental episode. You still tried to stab somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Who hasn't tried to stab a coworker or a classmate in the face?
I'm not saying no one can empathize. I'm saying there are consequences.
I mean, depends. Look, the place where I work right now, I guarantee you, if one person tries to stab another person in the face, the person being stabbed in the face will be the one blamed for it, for driving said person to insanity.
Well, sure. When I tried to stab someone, the last time I tried to stab someone in the library, I was at least asked to leave the premises for a few hours.
Go ahead, Ronnie. You want
I have one thing with your logic, because I know where you work.
But I'm just talking about the not the people we're servicing. I'm talking about the workers.
Oh, okay. Never mind then. That makes sense.
Finish up, Robert.
So I struggled to root for her in no small part because she does what a lot of unfortunately written horror protagonists do. They make stupid decisions over and over and over again, and then go, but why?
The thing that I came away with when I was thinking about this review was at a minimum, I felt the movie was at least unique. I mean, no movie these days is truly unique. There's only so many stories out there.
Allow me to point you to a movie starring, I believe, Kevin Bacon called A Stir of Echoes that this movie draws heavily from.
We've only had 120 years of talkies. It's fine. But I felt like I felt like
Mark remembers when Mark was part of the pitch meeting where someone said we can make these things talk, and a Hollywood producer went, "Who would want to hear an actor talk?"
And then they were thrown out the window.
I was there at the time. That's as old as I am.
And
I truly
had to try and deal. You counseled poor Lon Chaney Sr., whose career was ended as soon as people had to listen to his voice.
I truly felt this was a unique film, very much off the beaten path from the regular kind of film that's out there. And I suppose on a long enough timeline with enough depth and search, you can find 20 films similar to this. But I think on average, for the kind of stuff we're talking about on this podcast, I really felt like you and Ronnie would at least come away with it. Well, there's something you don't see every day, right or wrong.
Yeah, I was happy because it was different. I was happy. Yeah. Okay. So this is the first week or weekend that my theater here in town has shown. Every screen has had a movie on it that is from this year. Or
the theater didn't get Ghostbusters?
No, I was really disappointed. Now that's different.
I wish I had.
Yeah, I was really disappointed that Ghostbusters wasn't there, but that's different. You know, I'm talking about like they were struggling to find movies to show.
Right. Okay.
And then they were dipping into people's DVD, catalogs just to show something. They're like, oh,
we're going to show Debbie's home movies and her trip to Mexico.
Right. I thought it was like, it was like, oh, here's an art house movie. No, that was just some lady going to Mexico. And
I am so sad that with all the re-airings of old classic movies from that we got last year and then a big chunk of this year, when theaters are like, well, nothing's being released. Here's Jurassic Park. Here's Jaws. Here's the Indiana Jones franchise, all of which I loved, by the way. I was happy to see all of them on big screen, in some cases for a second time. Could no one have licensed out Roadhouse for a big screen re-airing? I would have watched the crap out of that.
North Carolina would have gone crazy for that, and West Virginia.
10 words or less. Go, Robert. Finish. Get over the finish line already.
Finish line. Yeah, I did not very much enjoy this. I get what you guys are saying about it being a break from the traditional sort of Hollywood dreck that is largely released. We are here, Mark, every week. You can't tell me I'm wrong.
If we didn't call this show Damn You Hollywood, it would be called Documenting the Dreck.
Yes. Or it really would, actually. And in fact, if any sponsor wants us to change because you don't want to be associated with a show that has a curse word in it, we will change to Documenting the Dreck.
Yep.
In a heartbeat.
All right, Ronnie, let me tell you about the music in this movie. I know Robert wasn't a huge fan. We had the same issue with Cruella. Before you came on, I mentioned that I thought this movie was superior in its use of the music, where it isn't just slapping a popular song in a space in order to engender good feelings so people will come out of the movie and have a good time. I really felt like the music played an aesthetic place in the telling of this story. There are some great songs in here that I was beep-bopping in my chair. I was having a grand old time. Hearing the Walker Brothers Land of a Thousand Dances and hearing like Anya Taylor-Joy dancing to it the way she was. Oh my God.
So cool.
Sandy Shaw, there's always something there to remind me. The original version of I Got My Mind Set on You, which I had forgotten was actually a cover.
Literally the song Last Night in Soho by Davey.
Right.
Davey D. Dozy, Beaky, Mick, and Titch.
Correct.
I practiced for this show.
Happy House by Susie and the Banshees. Oh, Susie.
Yeah.
Susie and the Banshees. Anyway, if you're like me and you and Ronnie and you enjoyed the music of Last Night in Soho, did you know that we were giving away a free 30 days of the Amazon Music Unlimited service, Ronnie?
Pay them bills, Mark.
Look, even if you're like me and you're extremely ambivalent to somewhat misanthropic about that era of music and some of the songs that came out of it, use Amazon Music to find stuff you do like. It will be there.
That's correct. They have a deep, wide catalog.
Even the stuff that Robert likes is there.
A lot of it.
A deep, wide catalog of music from every generation you can possibly think of, going all the way back to the talkies and into the future with nerd Nintendo car or whatever the hell the kids are calling it these days. Anyway, click the link in our description and get amazonmusic.com/W2M network. And you too can boot scoot around the house to Land of a Thousand Dances or Land of a Thousand Wrestlers, you pencil neck geek. Remember that one, Ronnie?
I do.
You gotta know how to phony.
That's all I had on that. I remember.
And on that note,
good job, Ronnie.
We have a new money theme because we are now monetized on YouTube. I don't know if both of you knew that or not, but we are currently raking in the dollar bills, y'all, which means no more copyrighted music. So
blasted with pennies. That's what we are.
So here it is, folks. Here comes the money.
We're in the money. We're in the money.
And I really do. I really do have
before
to
you say anything,
okay.
It was the Spanish subtitles.
Yep. That's what does it. That's what makes that thing work. Mark sent me that, said, this is our new theme because we don't need to trigger the copyright bots. We don't need to get DMCA'd. He sent me that, and I went, the subtitles make that work. And he said, it's the only one I can find on YouTube. Shut up.
I spent an hour and got Donald at the window angry because I could not find a legitimate, in the public domain copy of the Gold Digger song. And I just said, fuck it. Let me just go on YouTube and see what I can find. And I saw that clip and I'm like, perfect. Hopefully this doesn't trigger
anything.
It
was the Spanish subtitles, man. That's what does it.
Mm-hmm. There's another clip of the same bit, and it goes back a little bit further though, where he's actually talking about making a really stupid stock trade. But that's not what we needed. We just needed that part of wearing the money. All right.
I had to cut my mic off to clear out my throat. Not die.
We aim to please. All right.
Oh, man.
So this movie on a $43 million budget as of Monday, this thing came out October 29th. It actually had its debut September 4th, 2021 at, I believe, the Venice International Film Festival.
Sure. Why not?
Competing for prizes. Anyway, it's had its worldwide debut October 29th, 2021. And as of this recording, the Monday after, it has made $6.5 million on a $43 million budget, which means, you know what that means, Robert?
It means I get to laugh at you in a second, but play your sound bit.
This movie is currently...
Why is it so excessive?
The real question is, why is it so loud? I almost feel like I have to apologize to our headphone wearers after that each time. No, here's what I have to laugh at you about.
Yes, sir.
You'll recall last week,
mm-hmm.
not even a full week, not even a week ago, a mere 6 days, on Damn You Hollywood for Dune.
Yes.
When I said I think Dune will repeat,
Mm-hmm.
and you said, but you don't understand. Last Night in Soho and people like Edgar Wright, and I'm looking at this movie that made less than Antlers, and I almost want to demand an apology from you. It didn't even open in the top 5, and Dune, meanwhile, despite a 62% drop, did what? It reaped.
The cricket apologized for me.
You need a better clip for someone getting on the soapbox than the crickets.
No,
we'll
it's perfect. Just a giant
find
cricket.
one.
Okay.
We'll find one for you.
Okay.
But
Look, I will be gracious and admit when I'm wrong. I'm the only one that does so.
oh,
on
come
Earth.
on. I always. When have I ever not admitted when I'm wrong?
So, Robert, from me to you, sincerely.
God,
Fair
get this
enough.
man away from the board.
I know. As soon as he got that back, we all knew what we were in for.
My great joy in life is that I know that every time I play a sound clip, Alexis dies a little inside.
Why is there so many My Little Pony clips?
Because Mark wishes he were Pinkie Pie.
Mark, are
He's not-
you a brony?
No,
he's not
no, not as in part of the subculture, but as in he really wishes that around his house were a trombone that he knew how to make the sad trombone sound on.
I
drum
played
sets so he could do
trombone
the
in
rim
high
sets.
school, and I still didn't know how to do that.
Moving on.
That's Clearly,
All right,
a
so
missed
here's-
opportunity on my part.
So Halloween weekend, here's how things played out. Dune was the #1 movie for a second weekend in a row and is
2 times.
tearing up the charts, making all the money despite being day and date on HBO Max. It was the
It
#1
really-
movie again.
For a movie that was released the way it was, this
Mhm.
is a wild success.
Yeah, this is a rousing success.
I can't. Okay, I'll admit it. I've tried multiple times to watch Dune on HBO Max, and while I'm captivated by it, I really am. I think I'm going to love it. I can't finish it on a small screen. I want
You're-
to watch it on the big screen.
You're not alone. That is a movie that I think part of the reason it did so well is, again, it had a pretty significant drop, but I think that it held on so well because a lot of people like you, or even like me, who saw it on the small screen, in my case, in a bit of a rush job to make sure I could watch it in time to review it,
Yeah.
then looked at that and went, boy, I want to see that the way it's meant to be seen, and went to see it in the theaters. I mean,
I addressed a coworker publicly to demand she go see it on an IMAX screen,
Nice.
and then harassed her at work about it. And like, here, I mentioned you on a podcast and like showed her my phone.
nothing like peer pressure.
Nothing at all. Halloween Kills in its 3rd week maintained its spot in the #2. This is the fun. By the way, this might be the funniest top 10 we've ever done, and I'll tell you why in a second.
Oh, it's gonna be good.
So Halloween Kills in its 3rd week, day and date on Peacock, which apparently nobody has, maintained its 2nd
It's
week.
not a real streaming service.
in the
Deal with
second
it.
spot.
It's a real streaming service. I watch stuff on it all the time.
No Time to Die in its 4th week in the theater, exclusively, no day and date anywhere, maintained its 3rd spot in the
I
top
refuse to
10.
believe people like it.
And above Antlers, which was debuting this weekend, above Last Night in Soho, which we are currently talking about, which debuted this weekend, fucking My Hero Academia, brought to you by Funimation, World's Heroes Mission, which I saw with my daughter,
Good
and
for you.
decided that the My Hero Academia cast are actually X-Men, just in anime style.
You are incorrect in that for a variety of reasons, but if you want the specific, like, I know why you made that comparison, and
Because I'm an old man and I don't watch a lot of anime.
sure.
So when I went to the theater, I'm sorry, Robert, go ahead with you. Yeah.
No, I'm just saying, look, sure, you can make that. Mark can make that comparison because he's never seen anything from My Hero Academia before this moment, and he went, "Oh, kids with powers in school, X-Men."
Right. It's not that hard of an association.
It's not, but again, you're also not correct. But
My theater here has, of course, all the posters lined up on the outside wall.
Right.
And as I'm walking in, it literally goes Antlers, My Hero Academia, Last Night in Soho. And I was like, Okay, let's go see Last Night in Soho over these two.
I know, right?
It's so funny because you missed the part of the podcast where I told Robert, yeah, I knew it was either Antlers or Last Night in Soho, and I'm like, who'd want to go see Antlers? Apparently, everyone did.
More people than saw Last Night in Soho.
I'm gonna have to now upload Dennis Leary going, sorry, I fucked up. Sorry, I fucked up. Anyway, My Hero Academia debuted at number 4 from Funimation in only like 1,500 plus theaters. It made almost $6.5 million. So
Good for them.
Yeah, good for them.
That's the second theatrical release for a My Hero Academia film. So good for them.
Yeah,
they're coming. I believe the manga is kind of coming up on its closing arc. I'll be sad to see it go in some respects, but
Venom, Robert Winfree Hates You dropped from 4 to 5. And went down into the 38.2%.
That's true. I'd have to care more if I wanted to really hate it.
And lost 235 theaters. Now, here's the funny part of talking about the money. We're in the money. Antlers, who made its debut this weekend from Guillermo del Toro in some fashion or other, or the producer.
He's a producer.
I don't remember.
Producer.
Yeah, producer. Debuted at number 6. How much does your life fucking suck as a film when you can't even debut in your debut weekend in the top 5? What I mean, is there any more of an argument for no one gives a shit about your movie, except if you're the same situation and you debut at number 7, which is what Last Night in Soho did?
You know, I never thought about it. I guess they do now. You monster.
Look, given that we go through given that we go through this list every week, there's a lot of movies that debut outside the top 5, and we all know this now. Antlers, I don't think Antlers
not in wide release though.
Even then, like I it's more common than you are remembering at the moment. Look, I think Antlers is just fine where it is. Like, I hate to be that guy, but this is Antlers is a smaller budget, strictly horror film that was trying to compete with larger release fare that people were a couple of other horror movies. In point of fact, it didn't need big box office returns to be successful. It still doesn't. It'll be fine.
I think this is yet another one that came over in the Fox purchase. This is a Searchlight film.
Yeah, which again ought to tell you a little bit about that. Searchlight tends to have smaller budgets, and this is one of those that is going to be a good financial return, all things considered. It's not going to feature prominently in any lists, but it is what it is in that respect. Let's contrast that with Last Night in Soho, which debuted at number 7, had a larger budget, and boy, was that thing banking on being a big news item for like Antlers is the kind of movie that best case scenario debuts in number 3, give or take, and then does good, turns a profit. People like it. Some streaming service is going to pay a decent chunk of money to have it in their library, and people will watch it if it's a good horror movie, because that's kind of the life cycle of a horror movie. Last Night in Soho is barely a horror movie, I think, by most conventional, but by its tone, its aesthetic. Again, not completely divorced from the horror genre, but not really a horror movie, I tend to think, in a lot of respects. It really did need a big theatrical push, because this thing dying on the vine like this is like, that's horrible for, you have a bigger name director in terms of Edgar Wright.
This is not a good look for Universal.
Yeah, not at all. This is terrible. This is terrible for them.
In its second week, Ron's Gone Wrong. No one appears to have given a shit, which started out at number 5 and has dropped to 8. Yet another
literally realized it was out there tonight.
Literally, yet another Fox/Disney purchase. The Addams Family 2, which is currently PVOD, fell from 6 to 9. And my son, we watched the first one, I think the day before Halloween. And my son when he wasn't pitching podcasts, he was like, "When are we watching Addams Family 2?" And I'm like, "Calm the fuck down already."
You know what? You and your family should watch the original the first 2 live action Addams Family with Angelica Houston and why am I blanking? And Raul Julia.
Yeah.
Raul Julia and
Christopher Lloyd.
Christopher Lloyd.
The French Dispatch, but yet another Wild and Woolly famous director. Actually, got almost 100% increase in theaters. It went up 736 screens, but still dropped from 9 to 10.
I just realized I'm still on camera and I'm like looking at the
Inverse
looking at
there.
the screen like an old man.
Shang-Chi dropped out of the top 10. 9 weeks in the theaters and about to, I think, get pulled and go on the Disney Plus.
Almost certainly. Look, Disney's not going to compete with itself, and since Eternals comes out, we're probably going to say goodbye to Shang-Chi.
Yep. Which is fun. Which Ronnie and I reviewed, fell from 7 to 12. The Ghostbusters
re-release. Boy, hang on. Just about the last duel, let me just say this again. That's a story that needs ambiguity and mystery, and your decision, writers of that particular movie, to make it yet another stamp in yet another Me Too fable / moment was a terrible one, and your box office returns are proving that.
The re-release for Ghostbusters 1984, that made a little extra 300,000. I'm going to say this on camera. I'm actually going to go look directly into the camera for this. So my son,
whom I love.
My son.
If you don't want him anymore, I'll take him.
No, you can't have him. He's mine. I love dearly, but I implore in him progressive values. You
really should, and you really shouldn't.
May I please have my moment?
Sorry.
I implore in him progressive values. His sister is a little feminist. And while we maintain traditional family values, I try to encourage in him love for his fellow man and equality among the genders. And this fucking neckbeard meathead, 7-year-old, says, as we're coming out of the theater, and I said, "Hey, Jonas, they did another one." First of all, he tells me he loves Ghostbusters 1984. Good. Had a great time at the movies. Sister fell asleep for the first 30 minutes of it. This is becoming a pattern. But he was like, "This was great. Oh my God, are there any more of these?" And I said, "Yes, there is."
No, there's not.
They remade this in 2016, but did it with all female Ghostbusters. And he cuts me off and he says, "Listen, motherfucker." He cuts me off and he says, "I hate it."
Good.
Wow.
And I said, "But Jonas, I haven't told you anything about it except that it's 4 female Ghostbusters instead of 4 males." And he was like, "Yeah, if it's 4 girls instead of boys, they've already ruined the movie. I don't need to see it."
Oh,
like,
Bubby.
Holy shit. Who birthed you in a YouTube comment somewhere?
Mark. He's not coming from a YouTube comments perspective. Your son is what, 7?
7, yes.
You need to introduce him to the Little Rascals. He's just a He-Man woman hater. That's where he is in his developmental phase.
He tells me all the time, he was just like, "Listen, I see the value in being with a girl, but they're just going to distract me from doing what I want to do, and who can be bothered?" I was like, Jesus Christ.
The wisdom of children is vastly overstated in almost every instance.
My son, the neckbeard. Anyway, speaking of which, A Mouthful of Air debuted at 14 and made nothing. I make more than that in my salary, I think. That's not true.
Wait, okay.
I was gonna say, I'll buy that you make more than Free Guy did this week, but I'm not quite sure about A Mouthful of Air.
That's about the same. Free Guy dropped from 11 to 15, Candyman 12 to 16, The Rescue 14 to 17, Heart of Champions rather.
Candyman.
Made the teacher's annual salary in Florida, and debuted at number 18. Lamb dropped from 13 to 19. Dear Evan Hansen, You Stink. Drop.
I refuse to believe anything below 16 is an actual movie.
No, hang on. Jungle Cruise is a real movie.
How is that still in the theaters?
That's a better question, but it's a real movie.
It's about to be out of the theaters.
Yeah.
Other debuts this week.
Wasn't it released in 2018?
No.
It's The Souvenir Part 2, which debuted at 22, and Cicada at number 30. All right, and here's the part you all can't wait for. The worldwide box office. Where do we stand right now? Oh, boy.
Pretty much exactly where we were last week.
No, we have movement. We have things to talk about right now. So the Battle of Lake Changjin, which if you don't know what that is, it's a Chinese propaganda movie where they win.
Hang on.
Yes.
Yes, it's a bit of propaganda.
A bit.
It's a bit of propaganda the same way that most war films are. There's always a bit of no war movie, shouldn't say none, very few, very, very few, actually get events in battle and the associated geopolitical ramifications correct. Because here's the truth of it, most of them are not cinematic, and they certainly don't lend themselves to be wrapped up in a neat little 2-hour package.
Okay. We got to move this on.
Moving it on, it's about a real event
Mhm.
where the Chinese defended what was essentially the border between North Korea and China during part of the American invasion of North Korea during the Korean War. And they did, in fact, defend this particular border. They were not pushed further back. The American troops wound up disengaging. The problem is, I don't think there's a word in Mandarin for Pyrrhic victory. So they turned it into something more celebratory than, boy, we lost so many people.
We lost a lot of good horses that day. Speaking of speaking of lost horses, hi, Mom. Currently in the second place with 822 million. I think by the time 2021 ends, unless Spider-Man does gangbusters,
It's not. Look, here's a spoiler for everybody. It ain't gonna.
The top 2 movies of the year are going to both be Chinese domestic movies.
Yep.
F9 currently still in the 3rd spot, Detective Chinatown in the 4th, but cracking into the top 5 this week. No Time to Die, the second American domestic movie this year to crack 500 million.
Look, No Time to Die did not offend the Chinese government, and so was released in China, just like F9. Here's some uncomfortable truth for all of us to pay attention to. The most important box office region for movies is not the United States anymore.
It's China.
It's not. Look, the top 2 are Chinese films that were released essentially only in China.
Right.
Meanwhile, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings sits at number 7 and will not make $500 million.
Nope, it's about to end its run. So yeah, it's done now. Anyway, Godzilla and Kong knocked out of the top 5 where it sat almost the entire year.
Pretty
since
much.
It came out in March at 467. Shang-Chi, the aforementioned, 423. Venom in the top 10, much to Robert's chagrin, at 395.
Look, I've made my peace with the fact that once every couple of years you're going to make me go see this, and I'm going to wish to be James Bond being smacked in the balls by Le Chiffre with a rug beater. Because that's less painful.
Speaking of smacking men in the balls, Black Widow at 379. Free Guy.
That was a good transition, Mark. Good job.
Thank you. Free Guy at number 10. I don't even have to tell you. I mean, again, the number 1 movie of this weekend, despite its difficulties with the critics currently, is going to be Eternals. That's just the way it is.
It's going to be number 1. I think the question we have to ask ourselves is what does it do relative to the projections we might have had for it 6 weeks ago?
So Eternals comes out this week. That'll be the number 1 movie. It'll be number 1 again the following week because it has no competition. What competition it does have is streaming and the re-release of Rocky IV, which won the Cold War.
Hang on. You know what? I think Rocky IV might do it.
Oh, shut up.
I've been silent too long. No. Just to everything.
Ronnie's favorite movie of this year, whether he knows it or not, is Ghostbusters Afterlife, which comes out on the 19th. That'll be the number 1 movie of that weekend.
I'm really looking forward to that.
But it's going to get undone the following Wednesday because that's Thanksgiving weekend. It's going to be a long weekend. Lots of movie going as it happens over the Thanksgiving holiday. And your choices will be Encanto, which is the new Disney animated feature from looking at the culture of Colombia. House of
I knew
Gucci.
That was a thing.
House of Gucci by Ridley Scott, and Resident Evil, Welcome to Raccoon City, you fucks.
Boy, has any other director, like Ridley Scott doesn't have the same specific mark of demarcation that why am I blanking on the director's name? The guy who directed The Godfather. Francis Ford Coppola.
Mm-hmm.
Coppola has a very clear line of demarcation where everything before this moment is great, classic, some of the best films ever made, and everything after it is crap. Ridley Scott has some of the best films ever made to his name. He's also got some of the worst.
I think House of Gucci will do okay. I think the number one movie of the Thanksgiving weekend will end up being Encanto, and it'll probably be the number one movie because
Probably.
nothing comes out December 3rd.
So I just made. I'm sorry to go back just a hair.
Yeah,
but I made like a Degrees of Kevin Bacon moment for a second there.
Okay.
Because we were talking about antlers, and
Sure.
of course this has been about last night in Soho. Jesse Plemons is an antlers.
Yes, he is.
Who has the same melted wax face that Matt Smith does.
You interrupted me for that.
A little bit.
All right, West Side Story will be the number one movie of the weekend, December 10th. Yes.
Do not interrupt me, Radulich. This is important.
Oh, I didn't realize you weren't done making your wax face point.
I am now done. Go ahead.
God damn it. Bunch of drama queens over here. And then December 17th, poor Guillermo del Toro will have this wonderful movie that we will talk about, Nightmare Alley, but it's going to be utterly overshadowed by Spider-Man and the fucking multiverse.
Yeah, it is.
And then not to be outdone, we pack the end of the year in like an unwilling anal victim. Jesus Christ. We have Nightmare Alley, Spider-Man, and the following week, Kingsman, Sing 2, and the fucking Matrix 4. Christ on a cracker. Could we not space this out anymore?
I'm not sure you needed to liken it to anal rape.
I'm packing it all in there. No lube. Just
look.
You need to stop.
I know you've been rewatching Oz, but come on,
that's
man.
fact. I have only heard about it. All right. You want to look at that schedule that I just rattled off and not think it's jamming everything into the ass that you can find? What if I compared it to a turducken?
This is the first thing you go to.
Yeah, look, that's the part that's a bit more troubling. Look, you just have to be the poor nurse dealing with the ER patient who said, I don't know how that got in there. It was an accident. 1 in a million shot to fall on. Like, you ain't fooling anybody, buddy.
Ronnie, aren't you glad I got you to come on this podcast tonight?
I was asleep.
Thinking about anal sex?
No!
This
is a safe space, Ronnie. It's just between me and you. You can tell me if that's what you were thinking about.
And our dozen. I can't even pluralize this. Dozen, singular dozen listeners.
All right. And on that note,
note of dozens.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
All right,
I'm sending you to school to learn how to segue into bits.
Have a hot dog and a Hummer. It's on me.
Boy, the audience thought about this very little.
Well, nobody saw it. There wasn't, many people think about it.
That's true.
The critical review is brought to you by fucking Grammarly.
Yeah, Grammarly. Which could get
Grammarly, don't take his cursing to heart. We love you.
Grammarly, which Mark needs so that he can come up with a different metaphor than anal sex.
What's truly troubling is that's not the first time I've done that.
I know. That's why I said you need a new one.
Grammarly will help you when you're like me and you won't be allowed to do your stupid transitions and ad reads by your co-host to come up with a better way of handling it grammatically than screaming, fuck you, you fucking fuck.
You're going to have to mark this one as a you're going to have to mark this is what's going to get us demonetized on YouTube, not the clips. Mark's incessant profanity, which does trigger the YouTube
it really does.
demonetizer algorithm.
There's been a few that are limited ad because I can't stop cursing.
You really have to stop.
That's going to be the thing that does it. I'm going to have to start behaving myself on these things. Fucking Grammarly's AI-powered products help people communicate more effectively than I do. Grammarly helps you write mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly anywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, and spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and stopping your incessant cursing. To download Grammarly today, go to getgrammarly.com/W2M network. Again, that's getgrammarly.com/W2M network to help Ronnie Adams with the aneurysm he's currently having.
At least it'll make your incessant cursing less repetitive.
At what point do the listeners go, I don't think he actually uses that?
Look, Mark is kind of a tangential user of Grammarly. Pat uses it all the time. I've used it on occasion. I don't want to get into it, but
Pat uses it because he has to. He's actually, Pat is pretty. I don't think I've heard him cuss as much as Mark, to be honest with you.
At 74% fresh is where we landed with the critics, 92% audience score. The critics' consensus, although it struggles to maintain its thrilling early momentum, Last Night in Soho shows flashes of Edgar Wright at his most stylish and ambitious. And the audience says...
It's not always a good thing to be stylish and ambitious. I'm just throwing it out there.
Last Night in Soho has visual thrills and a great soundtrack and a plot that keeps you guessing. In other words, everything you want from an Edgar Wright movie.
Okay, let me tell you what the audience synopsis really says. The keys jingle, and I don't think. That's what they're admitting to here.
All right, speaking of jingling keys, Sarah Michelle Fetters of MovieFreak.com, top critic.
One of the best.
Star. That's just the best. It's like watching immaculately coiffed mannequins sprint to and fro. And while they look magnificent, that does not mean I cared much about what was happening or what the solutions hiding within this time-traveling puzzle box were going to be.
I think we kind of aligned it. Look, this is one of the problems when your characters are all stock. No one cares. I don't think that's terribly outside the bounds.
David Fear from an ancient rag of no consequence in our current times, Rolling Stone.
Boy, your medium is dying.
Wait. I didn't know they were still actually a thing.
Yeah, they still sell Rolling Stone. But whether people are buying it, they are in the process of selling it.
Just one dude in the corner of a crappy apartment just going, I'm going to show them.
I went to a Led Zeppelin concert once. Wright gives you such a heady, intoxicating recreation of that historical UK cultural kaboom that even when he and co-writer Krysty Wilson-Cairns pulled the rug out from under viewers, you can still feel the pull of those 60 sequences.
Okay, buddy. You ain't Joseph Conrad. Learn how to break up your sentences, first of all. Second.
I don't think he actually said anything.
He did. It's just really stupid. His point is, boy, I loved the style, and I think they did such a great job pulling at pseudo-nostalgia with a soundtrack and costume design that even though the writing sucks, I don't care that much because nostalgia. Get bent.
No, he didn't say that.
That's what he said. Look, I am really good at interpreting what people actually say, regardless of what words come out of their mouth.
He said kaboom.
He did. He did. And I knew I was able to. Look, if I've listened to hundreds of slightly brain-damaged fighters give in-cage interviews immediately after said bludgeoning, and I can figure out what they say, I can interpret this idiot.
What did you think in the middle of the fight? I hit kaboom.
I was at work.
Look, that's you putting over your opponent as someone that hits really hard, and you're still happy that you won because of all the hard work you put in. I know what they're saying.
I was at work recently, and somebody said something to me, and I was like, well, anything is possible through Christ. And I had to explain to them that I was mocking Ben Henderson and not being religious in a work environment, which would be inappropriate.
Look, Mark, that's how far behind the times you are with MMA. You still think Benson Henderson's a somewhat relevant person to reference.
Yeah. Every time I do that bit, I have to go into such a long explanation that starts with, well, first the dinosaurs came.
It's really not worth it.
Esther Zuckerman of Thrillist, top critic, best of the best. I don't believe that's a real name, by the way.
Zimmerman. Why is that funny to me right now?
Esther Zuckerman.
Zuckerman.
Last Night in Soho is ultimately a messy and occasionally frustrating film, but that pull that Eloise feels is both heartfelt and inescapable in Edgar Wright's haunted ode to us kids who could not get enough of the past.
Okay, look, as a bit of an antiquarian myself, you're allowing the fact that that you wished to you feel you were born a century too early, like too late. There's a lot of people like this. The fact that this movie goes, hey, here's a person who feels a little bit displaced in time with the ability to time travel, and you go, oh, I wish that were me. That's not an excuse for poor film craft. And the fact that you allow it to be such is poor film review on your part.
Tom Schoen of the Sunday Times UK. This fucking rag. Wright has finally made a movie in which the needle drop is the plot.
I'm going to assume that's a colloquialism that I'm not familiar with, and that makes more sense to him because otherwise,
the needle drop on a record player. Needle.
I
drop.
know, I understand the physical
Okay.
reference. I'm not sure I understand the metaphorical reference. Hence, I'm going to assume this is a colloquialism I'm not terribly familiar with.
I just sneezed because that's what I think of it.
Marianne and Neil of Impression Blend.
That's certainly some outlet you contribute to.
I love when horror is approached creatively. I love it like this. When it's gorgeous, I love it. And seductive, I love it. And a little bit crazy, I love it.
I'm going to tell you that I'm not entirely fond of anything you're doing right now, Mark.
Look, this person gave this a 9 out of 10, an almost perfect score. I'm sorry, does no one care about film writing anymore? Does no one care about these things? About consistency?
Robert, buddy, it's good.
If you want creative and gorgeous horror, you can find stuff that's actually creative and scary. Not, oh look, Antlers came out the same week.
I forgot because I was in the theater watching this.
When you said yourself you would have rather watched Antlers.
I would have, but here's the deal.
Oh God,
it's not that okay. The writing isn't it's not that bad. And now the third act is what really turned me off. But I could still get behind 2/3 of the movie. Right. Now, do I think it deserves a 9 out of 10? No. Do I think a lot of these people are just going, hey, look at me. I can write fancy words on a paper and you'll pay me for it? Yes, because they have no sense of anything. It's those who can't teach and those who fail at acting or filmmaking turn into what they do.
Ever finish a Damn You Hollywood in less than an hour and a half, I will fucking die on camera.
Mark, you might want to get your affairs in order because tomorrow you and I are talking about Paranormal Activity Next of Kin. We will be done with that in less than 90 minutes, I guarantee.
If y'all don't give it, if you give it more than it stinks from the critic, then I've lost all hope.
Look, that might be the first Damn You Hollywood that hits the mythical 22-minute mark.
Lee McCoy of Drum Dums, Robert. Drum Dums.
Well, this guy certainly is one of those.
Edgar Wright continues to dazzle with this love letter to Italian and 60s cinema. Of course, mixed with his signature style of next-level camera work, Soho is hypnotic and seductive, just like the world our main character Eloise embarks.
Okay, moron. You don't embark on a world. You embark on a voyage. You inhabit a world. Sir, could take Grammarly on us. Use it. It'll help you avoid these particular things. Here's the other problem I have with this. Edgar Wright's camera work only really showed up in the dance sequence. Like everything else that goes on here is very much not his style when it comes to what he does as a director. You get one good sequence that is very much within his visual flair and style. Everything else was, frankly, a lot more generic, and I was a little bit surprised by that considering it's Edgar Wright.
Robert's father weighing in from Movie Nation, Roger
Not
Moore.
my father. Mark, don't lie to the people.
The most stylish and upscale horror movie in years.
Okay, no.
Hang on. He's not technically wrong, and I have to give him credit for that.
The one time I go with you on this, you go the opposite direction.
Oh, okay,
Robert.
hang on.
I'm done. I'm done.
No, hang on. Here's what I here's what I mean by he's
Hold
technically.
on, I think I broke things.
You might have.
Okay, I'm good now.
Here's what I mean by he's technically correct. If we're talking purely about visual style and allegedly upscale setting, can you name something in the last 2 years, so we'll go back to 2019, that is on the same level of production as this?
No, because the world shut down.
And he is technically correct. This is what I mean. Like, I'm not happy about it, but he is. And I'm going to... Dude, I fit in with the bureaucrats in Futurama. You know this. I'm pedantic. I have to be. He is technically correct, and I'm mad about it.
Army of the Dead.
All right. A couple more of these, and then we're closing up for the night.
Stylish, yes. Upscale, no. But okay, fair point.
Ryan Syrek of The Reader of Omaha, Nebraska.
People read in Omaha, Nebraska?
Did you just say
Hey,
Omaha?
I did.
Let's not insult the people of Omaha just because we don't like this guy.
Look, I've driven through Nebraska.
Okay, Mark. Go ahead, Mark. I seriously saw Mark's soul die.
Little bit.
The big reveal in Last Night in Soho is the single most unintentionally hilarious film moment of 2021.
He's not wrong.
That's a bad accomplishment in a normal year. It's apocalyptically bad in a year that also features an M. Night Shyamalan movie.
He is not wrong about that. I expected to tear into that guy, but he's not wrong. Good for you, sir.
Michael Medved of the Michael Medved Show. We hate you, Michael Medved. We hate you.
This is for the record. This is the one critic that Mark hates and I don't care about. But this guy.
When I called your radio show, I demand my time, and he took it from me, like my virginity. The lavish soundtrack.
Unwillingly.
No.
The lavish soundtrack featuring.
Well, now we know why Mark's obsessed with it.
The lavish soundtrack featuring pre-Beatles British pop is the most appealing part of the artsy but annoying Last Night in Soho.
Of all the things you could have praised about, look, at least here's the thing about this, and this is the problem I have with that review. You went out of your way to point out that the song selection here was designed to designed to be a character. It's not just what Cruella did, which is slapdash, people remember these songs. That's not actually the point he's making. The point he's making is, boy, wasn't the music good from that time period. Like, that's not helpful criticism of the film, sir.
Armin White of National Review, this fucking guy.
Oh, this guy.
And we will end with this. We will always end with Armin White, who fucking hates everything, but for no good reason.
That's more prophetic than you might think.
National Review. Everything about Wright's checklist filmmaking is unsatisfying. Trying to make both a pop culture jamboree and an expose of female exploitation means Last Night in Soho is diversity gone mad. Mad, I tell you. Okay. Sick 'em, Ronnie. Sick 'em.
It's like, okay, this guy doesn't like pizza. It's not that he doesn't like pineapple on pizza.
Which should not exist.
Right, we both agree on that. He doesn't like Alfredo sauce on pizza. He doesn't like certain things. He just doesn't like pizza as a whole. Why do you review movies if you don't like any of them? Stop being a dick. Have a Coke, smile in Mark Radulich terms, or whatever else you want. Here's a cupcake, and just enjoy a movie. Like, this guy is like very, very downtrodden on everything, isn't he? Like, he doesn't like anything.
Look, I would care less about what he says about this movie in particular here because, okay, I think he's right about the tonal problem that this film has. He's not wrong in terms of his pure criticism here. This is every week with this guy.
Yeah. My problem is that he didn't like. Isn't that he didn't like this film? My problem is isn't even like that he doesn't like. No. I don't care that he doesn't like anything either. If he if he's looking for the lobster and he can't find it, not the Eddie Izzard joke, the actual movie, The Lobster.
Yeah, stars Colin Farrell.
Yeah, like that's fine. Yeah. I don't begrudge Robert that. I don't begrudge this guy that.
I forgot about that.
However, he never has a good reason for not liking anything, and he is looking for that magical unicorn progressive agenda film that he just can't seem to find.
He writes for National Review. He wants the opposite.
Okay.
I might be mistaken, but I think National Review is a slightly more conservative publication. Don't quote
This
me
guy
on that.
sounds like the left of the left, though. Like
No, like his complaint here is there's diversity and it's gone too far.
Okay.
Well, okay, here's the deal. Like, I give Robert and Pat a hard time, but that's our shtick. You know, it's a shtick with us. You know, it's like they don't like anything, blah, blah, blah. No, they do like things. They like things. This guy likes nothing.
Okay.
This guy doesn't like himself.
And that
He
is
needs a
our
hug.
review of Last Night in
Hey,
Soho.
Stop interrupting me, Mark.
Hey, as someone who doesn't like himself, I don't need a hug.
Yeah, you know what you
I
need?
will hug you no matter what.
Ah, Mungo.
That was funny.
Good old Mondo.
And on that note, finally, we are at the end of our Last Night in Soho review. Tomorrow, myself and Robert will review Paranormal Activity. On Halloween, we dropped like 900 shows.
Oh my gosh, it was ridiculous.
My kids and I did a alternative commentary, which my son was fucking hilarious, for A Nightmare Before Christmas. Jesse and Alexis reviewed Power Rangers on A Nightmare on Elm Street. We re-aired our Trick or Treat reanimated review.
That's the crossover you never knew you wanted, but was kind of awesome.
Yeah. And then late in the evening, since Limp Bizkit dropped it on Halloween, we rushed to review Limp Bizkit Still Sucks. Tomorrow...
Mark, I have to ask, because I haven't listened to your review yet. Just tell me, does it still suck?
I referred to it... This is actually funny. I referred to it as the kind of music that makes you want to rip your toilet out of the bathroom and yeet it across the room. And somebody left a comment on our YouTube review agreeing with me. He was like... Yeah, accurate. It's toilet throwing music.
That's amazing.
Awesome. I have accomplished something in my life.
You know what? YouTube commenter, thank you. Thank you for commenting. It helps the algorithm. I assume you liked the video. If you didn't, please do so.
Okay. Tomorrow, myself and Robert Winfree will be reviewing Paranormal Activity, Next of Kin. Wednesday.
Next of Nothing. That's what that movie is. Nothing.
Wednesday, myself and the boys will be reviewing Ministry Moral Hygiene. Pat and I are reviewing the last half of Dark Side of the Ring Season 3. Friday night after SmackDown ends and Robert takes a cold shower, we will be getting together to do a Oscar-worthy...
You're not giving me enough time for a cold shower.
An Oscar-worthy triple feature of Sad Piano, Black and White Movie, and How's Your Father? Nomadland, Mank, and The Father. And then Saturday, we have a re-airing of our Pride and Prejudice and Zombies review. Plus, Robert has UFC coverage, so he can't be with us, which is sad. But I'm joined by Chris Bailey and Daniel Lasby in theory. We'll be doing the Canelo Alvarez, Caleb Plant unification title for all the super middleweight belts. Sunday is
Mark,
Robert. Everyone loves a bad guy for Dexter. Yes, Robert.
I just have to warn you about the Canelo fight.
Mm-hmm.
I intercepted one of the couriers who was delivering the scorecards the other day. So you might get a more serious scoring of that fight since one judge will not be able to sleep cage side and ringside and just hand in. I stole it.
Okay.
I did not keep it because I don't need the evidence of the assault that took place, but I know what they were going to score that fight now, at least one of the judges.
Terrific.
Nice.
You can check out all of our Halloween coverage that we had. We had a whole bunch of shows. Plus, there's a therapy session that did an imitation of a podcast that took place Friday night between a drunken Pat Mullen, a drunker Jason Teasley, and a mortified Mark Radulich.
Slightly drunk Mark Radulich.
I was not drunk. I'm
not
300 pounds. I don't get drunk on one beer.
Okay, not sober, Mark Radulich.
I mean, you kind of brought that on yourself by inviting that.
You guys put that together late. They both said, "Hey, we're going to be drinking." You said, "God bless." What did you expect to happen?
That's the show I made my wife on camera bring me an alcoholic beverage and then do the Chinese bounded ankle walk away, and then got called a dick on camera.
Oh my God! Yes,
by a different show. Yeah. So hey, the benefits of live streaming.
You
Speaking of
you too, listener, if you want to come on and call Mark a dick, you can. We are live streaming on Twitch, Facebook, and I don't think we're live streaming on YouTube, are we? We might be.
Sure are.
If you want to contribute,
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-bum.
if you want to contribute to the show and leave a chat message, you can. Mark will show them on screen, and we are happy to interact with you people. That's a real offer. The Damn You Hollywood records usually 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Mondays and Tuesdays.
While Jesse roams the neighborhood fondling people's junk, Ronnie Adams takes people into his basement and teaches them D&D. Tell the people about the children that you teach D&D to, Ronnie.
I get that reference, and Jesse's going to be mad at you.
No, Jesse knows. Jesse and I have talked about him wandering the neighborhood fondling junk.
I don't want to do this anymore.
It's okay. Just in case someone knows. Just in case someone knows Jesse Starcher and is going, wait, what? Mark is referencing his penchant for going to estate sales and auctions.
Correct.
Oh,
I don't know what else you thought I meant by that.
You people are.
I thought he went around grabbing people's testicles.
Oh, that's obscene, Ronnie, and that's not that. This is not that kind of show.
Mark,
the video's going to get demonetized now because of you, Ronnie.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mark's screaming the F word 9,000 times in one sentence and talking about anal rape doesn't get it demonetized.
Don't say the R word. That really gets it done.
Talk about the children, Ronnie.
Beep. Anyway, God, why?
We just segued. Wait. We just segued from anal to the children way too soon.
Yeah, that's so true. I don't want to say that. I'm going to say that I have a Twitch channel called Misfits and Miscreants, where we do an actual play D&D podcast every other week. I am getting back into the swing of things of, streaming video games in the meantime, but I'm going to start here soon. We're starting up more board game content, more TTRPG content, such as Kids on Bikes, Monster of the Week, and Call of Cthulhu. I just ran a couple of Call of Cthulhu games recently. One was at Free RPG Day, and then they asked me to run it again on an off week to just run a game, and it's been a lot of fun. So we're going to be doing that a little more often, some one shots of that. But right now, our main show is I run 7 people through Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maiden, and
7.
Yes,
dang man, it's a big party.
I've ran a party of 12 before.
I bet you have, big boy.
I hate you and everything about you right now,
Mark.
But anyway,
why do you choose to be the things that you will?
I gotta be.
But we have 7 people. It's been a lot of fun. We've only been through 4 sessions because of Free RPG Day and things like that. But the 4th session just dropped. It's on Twitch right now. It'll be uploaded to YouTube tomorrow. And it's been. I've got some really cool players. And we now have our own micro. We have separate microphones so you can hear them instead of just having a tabletop microphone. But so it's been really fun. I'm excited to see where these characters are going and what they're doing. I've got some cool plans, but of course it's their story. I'm just helping them tell it. So
Jesse's going to teach my neckbeard son to play D&D.
Who is?
You are.
I'm not Jesse.
Oh fuck yeah, Ronnie. Ronnie Adams of the
chunk, sir.
Ronnie of the Screaming Boy podcast will teach my son how to play D&D because he is really into tabletop board games and wanting to learn how to role play now.
Yeah. He's going to be awesome at it.
So I'm going to need to get him like muscle mass and steroids and get him on the weights. So when people find out in high school that he plays D&D since the age of 7 or 8 years old, he doesn't get shoved into lockers.
Homie, it's chic now. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's chic. Don't even worry about it. Critical Role,
I mean
the D&D podcast, all these things.
I mean this in all sincerity. It's not. That doesn't carry the same stigma it did for you.
No.
It's
Joe Manganiello plays.
Don't talk about my trauma.
Look,
So-
I'm not saying it's gonna get you invited to parties and let you date the prom queen, but it ain't gonna get you swirly twice a week.
Fair
So
enough.
on Instagram, I follow different creators, mostly Dungeons and Dragons, like content creators. And then I found LA D&D Society, which is Kyle Newman and a few other people, and Joe Manganiello. Joe Manganiello has a weekly game that he hosts out of his basement, which he calls
does.
the Gygax Memorial Dungeon, which has people like Vince Vaughn, Paul White of Big Show, Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine, and Kyle Newman. Like I said, Kyle Newman is a director who directed a movie called Fanboys and some other things. Was recently he and Jamie King have divorced, but they were married for a while. And then he's got a lot of famous people on there that you'd never think would play. They don't stream anything. That's their game, and I love that about them. So it doesn't carry that same stigma anymore. I don't have to hide in the corner anymore and pray that someone punches me in the mouth for loving D&D.
Well, again, not for D&D at least. Plenty of other reasons we all have to hide in corners and pray not to get hit. But
Magic the Gathering is a different story. But
indeed.
But there is Magic the Gathering content as well. And Mark Radulich has turned into Dr. Manhattan, and
he'll be back in a second.
Okay, he'll be back in a second. So, yeah, we do that. We are on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I don't really use Twitter because I feel like it is the absolute dregs of social media, and I don't get on there. So we don't really use it when we have it.
It wasn't until TikTok showed up.
Now we have a TikTok as well, and it's a lot of fun because the algorithm actually works. All I get is D&D. Yeah.
TikTok's filtration system seems to be better.
Yes.
I'm just saying, if you're looking for the dregs of society, don't get me wrong, they're on Twitter, but you search the wrong thing on TikTok just once.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You'll find the people who decide that it's a good idea to take the trampoline frame, string it with barbed wire, and jump onto it.
Leave that boy alone. He's found what he does good.
No, not that one. The other one.
Oh, okay. I'll have to figure him out. So I'm not remiss. I mean, this is a little early to announce this, but we also have a Patreon. Patreon is anywhere from, we have 5 different tiers starting at $5, where you're invited into our Discord so you can talk to us, about the story, everything else. We also have all the way up in the different tiers. I will help you design an NPC, which is a non-player character that we use in our campaign and will be used often. Up to the highest tier, I will set up a private one-shot with you that we can stream, online, and it'll be an online session. So if you want your some friends to come in, you can do that, or I can grab some people and play. But you will be, we'll set up a one shot for you to even play. So our Patreon is set up. If you are going to support us, we appreciate you do it through Patreon. We also appreciate any kind of subs and everything on Twitch. Just to get us some, I'm not using it. It's not a get rich thing. It's not like, oh, hey, we're like Critical Role. No, we're not. I just, if you enjoy it and you want to support it, that's great, because we could use that to help further our stream with, better recording equipment, better cameras, some cool stuff, like miniatures and stuff like that. Because I'm a big physical terrain guy. I'll use a lot of physical terrain, Dwarven Forge and the like. So that's what it would go to. So our Patreon is on our link tree. If you visit the twitch.tv/misfits and miscreants. So that's it for me, because I just kept rambling because I didn't know where you went, Dr. Manhattan.
I pee and then get
he went wee.
Get some cran apple drink.
Nice.
Not alcohol.
I love
cranberry. Not alcohol. God damn it.
Right. Not.
Speaking of not alcohol, go Churchy.
Well, as soon as I get done with this, I'm going.
Sorry. I've never heard him call you Churchy before.
It's a new one. But I'm used to Mark trying out different nicknames for me and still not finding one that sticks. So
Oh, I'll find one that sticks.
I'm not saying you won't. I'm saying you haven't yet.
I don't think you understood what he meant.
Oh, I did. Look, this is why it works. Mark tries to be clever, and because I'd rather not engage with his pseudo cleverness, I pretend to be more concrete than I am.
We are the living embodiment of the TikTok meme where, like the guy, where it's the guy being straight laced and then the girl wanting his attention going boo doo 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 doo. I'm that girl.
It's so true.
It is. So
Anyway,
Mark,
Churchy, go for it. Sorry.
no, you're good.
Changing your name in the chat.
You can go ahead. It won't matter. As soon as we're done with this, I'm going to review AEW's Dark Elevation YouTube show because that's one of the things I do. Wednesday, I will be covering MLW's Fusion Alpha program, which has been a lot of fun actually lately. They've finally got a decent setup going there. And Friday, I will cover WWE SmackDown, which I'm sure will drive me to consider suicide again.
He actually did it.
I know. Why are you surprised?
I don't know. I just saw it flip over. I literally saw it happen.
Are you good?
No, not almost. Mark referenced a few of the other podcasts we have coming up. Tomorrow, we will have a short podcast talking about Paranormal Activity Next of Kin and that woefully misbegotten franchise at this point and how it needs to die. Friday, we will talk the cinema. Mark and I will actually we will put on our smoking jackets. Mark will have a snifter of brandy. We will have cigars, and we will ascend to the upper crust, and we will have a high-class discussion of serious cinema rather than the blockbuster schlock we normally discuss down here on the Damn You Hollywood.
I might take this so seriously that I don't curse or use sexual innuendo on that podcast.
I would love to. I'm going to enjoy watching your face turn red as you try very hard to hold to that.
I was because I have to swallow all that in and then explode.
That's going to be a rough night for everyone in your household as soon as the camera turns off and you just detonate.
And I just start yelling. I just start screaming swear words and thrusting my hips into the wall.
Pretty much. So we will be discussing a triple feature of films that were highly regarded by the awards ceremonies last season: Nomadland, Mank, and The Father. And we will have thoughts. Some of them will be intelligent, informed, and thoughtful. Some of them will be purely personal, and some of them will be me talking about why I hate the bifurcation of cinema and the cinematic process that's been going on lately. And that's some of what spawned the existence of that particular podcast. So tune in for a more nuanced, thoughtful discussion of that, as opposed to Mark referencing various forms of sexual gratification as he normally does.
Everyone's got to have a brand.
This last Saturday, I covered UFC 267, which started very early in the morning for me, 8:30 in particular, and went on. So you can find my full report for that over in the MMA Zone of 411mania.com. Darn good card. We all knew it would be. It's a darn good card because all other events in the month of October sucked, and that was rough. They really did. So you can find my full report for that. I host the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast if you're interested in the sport. This last episode, I set a record for talking to myself for 2.5 hours, where I reviewed UFC 267 and previewed UFC 268. Which is another really good card coming your way this Saturday, which I will also be covering over at 411 Mania. If you follow me on social media, be that as a friend on Facebook or just a guy on Twitter, I tend to be fairly active on fight nights, retweeting finishes, my thoughts on the technique that's associated with them, so on and so forth. Or you can follow along with the live coverage where you get all of that, can potentially talk with other fans in the comments section, and help encourage the people at 411 Mania to keep me on staff. It's a lie. They keep me around because I do things no one else will do. I know, Mark. I know what you were going to do.
And on that note, thank you for joining. Thank you for joining us for a movie review that might actually be longer than the goddamn movie itself.
Little bit.
For Sleepy Bear and for Churchy McGee, I'm Mark Radulich. Be well.
I will change my handle on this. This will be Churchy McGee tomorrow.
Be well, be safe, and behave.